I don't think I can create a title that really embraces the depth that we go to inside of this episode. This is about building a brand off of real authenticity, not fake authenticity. And if you don't understand the difference, you will by the end of this episode. This episode was so powerful that it made me tear up, which is, if you're watching on YouTube, you can probably tell. But the reason why it made me tear up is not because it made me sad, but it helped me remember who I am and what my mission is on this world and this planet, at least at this point in time. This is a powerful episode. It comes from a concept that I got in a meditation recently, and I can't wait for you guys to listen. So that's all I got for you for the intro. So if you're intrigued, well, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today we have quite an episode, and I don't even know how to start it. Today's episode is going to be, I'm going to call it a deep one. I mean, it's something that I'm going to say taps into the truth and just how things work and how human connection works and how human psychology works and how the human mind works. But I'm going to reference it back to how you can use this concept to build a deeper connection, not only with yourself, but with your audience, with your spouse, kids, whatever it may be. I mean, basically anyone that you come into contact with. And this is an episode, I don't know, maybe if you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, maybe you have noticed, maybe you haven't, but the last couple weeks or months, I've been introducing episodes that I feel like are more back into the realm of where I was before the last 2 years. And so for those of you who don't know, the last year or two have been pretty rough for me because I went through a divorce, which is a place that I never thought I would ever be in. And introduced, like, just a lot of things started to shed and change, and even the business and what we do and what we offer, like just so many things have shifted and changed and got ripped apart and allowed me to step back into this rebuilding phase, but which has been a very painful but beautiful. I think about a place I can call it a blessing. Blessing now. Did not feel like a blessing when you're going through it, but a blessing. And so before that happened, I would talk a lot about lessons I was learning in personal development concepts and spiritual concepts, and not spiritual in the sense of like a dogma or religion or whatever, but spiritual in the sense of helping you become more connected to being internally peaceful, to finding more security in who you are, more personal power, things like that, right? Like, how do we evolve into a place of peace and healthy dynamics? And what I loved about doing those sort of episodes was that what I felt like was my specialty, and something that I could really, and this is my specialty with messaging too, is I can see angles and how things are connected in ways that sometimes people can't. And so I loved teaching concepts that I was learning lessons, but also show you how that lesson helps you in business and become a better parent, but also from a personal development perspective. And I've been slowly getting back into that, stepping back into where I felt like before the last, year or two. And this episode is going to be one that really taps into that. And so for me, this episode is actually was a concept that I was gifted in a meditation that I did. And so I did a meditation with 5 of some of my really good friends, James Wedmore, Catherine Sinkina, Manifestation Babe, Jill, who is James's sister, and Jen, who works with James in his business, but is also his fiance, which is really exciting. The 5 of us did a meditation, like an hour-long meditation, and then we all share afterwards. And so we do this meditation, and it's not a prompted meditation. It's not a guided meditation. We just meditate on our own. but together, and then share what we got. And it's really cool. And I love doing that because what often happens is all of us see the same thing, the same picture, except we all see a part of it, a piece of it. And then when we share, we get to see and witness the full picture of what was really happening during the meditation. A quick example, like this is not what happened, but like, let's say there's a bird, right? And you're meditating and someone sees a wing and someone sees the head and someone sees the leg and the other wing. And then you piece it together. You're like, oh my God, we saw birds. Cause someone's experience is like, I just saw a wing. Someone's experience is I just saw a head, and someone's experience is I just saw a leg. And then when you share, you start to realize, oh my gosh, we were seeing a phoenix, or we were seeing an eagle, or we were seeing whatever. And that's sort of like what these meditations were. But there was this concept that was introduced to me during this meditation about authenticity. And I remember I kept hearing the word authenticity, be authentic. And I think part of what I had to go through this past year was truly stepping into my authenticity of who I was, and not bending who I was or what I liked or what I felt like I was here to do with my work to anyone else, and to not be controlled in a way of like exploring who I was, or my concepts, or the things that I liked and the things that I felt called to do and to teach. And that has been a big lesson for me, is stepping into my own personal power and allowing for me to really just step into authentically who I am, regardless of what was happening in the external world, whether it's the immediate external world or the external world, like what's going on the planet, that sort of thing. And so I remember hearing the word authenticity. And then I heard the word conditioned authenticity. And then I heard this word authentic authenticity. And then I stopped hearing words, and I was just left with this deep understanding of what was the difference between the two, because I never saw a difference between. I just thought authenticity was authenticity. Be who you are, the things that you like and the things that are interesting to you and the things that you want to talk about. But there is a difference. There is a massive difference and there's different levels of authenticity. And we have to understand that we come into this world as a baby. We don't have any beliefs, and we don't have any ways of being. We don't have any dynamics, right? We don't have any, we don't really even have a personality yet. We don't even have an understanding of what is right and what is wrong. I mean, think about that for a second. When you're born onto this planet, you have no idea what is right or wrong. It's not a concept. And what happens over time is we learn what is right and wrong. We learn about beliefs or religions or dogmas or ways of being. We learn how to show up in this world to keep ourselves safe. Our experiences start to shape ways that we move forward, that our experiences start to shape our reality. And none of it is true. None of it is right. None of it is wrong. None of it, they just are these things. But the point I'm making is that when you're a baby, you're not born with any of these things. And these things are all learned along the way. And every single person on this planet is going to have a unique, different version of what a belief is, what religion is, what is right, what is wrong, what is the best way to be, how to operate in the world. And no one is ever going to have 100% the same viewpoints on everything always. And people like to think that because someone doesn't have the same viewpoint as me or the same perspective as me, they're wrong and I'm right. And no one's right, no one's wrong. They're just ways of being. And there's a billion of different ways of doing that, right? And so there's a reason why I'm harping on this. And this episode is really going to dive deep into this. But what we have to understand is when we come into this world, we aren't born with any of that stuff. We aren't born with it as it's all learned. And one of the things that I remember when I was exploring this concept even deeper is that if we were to grow up 100 years ago, or we were to grow up and be born into 500 years ago, all the things that we think are right or wrong or normal or who we even are as a person would be completely changed. They would be completely different. For example, if I grew up and I was born, let's say I wasn't born in 1983, which is when I was born, and I didn't live in 2020 or 2025, or I didn't live in this time period, I probably wouldn't be an entrepreneur. Like if I grew up 500 years ago when there was knights, right? Like knights and castles and all of that stuff. And again, I don't know if that was 500 years ago or not. So like, don't ring me on the review saying Brandon effed up the the century where knights and stuff were. Like, I'm just going to call it 1500. So like whatever, 1500s. I likely wouldn't be an entrepreneur, which is a huge part of my identity, who I am today. And there is a piece of me that will tell you, like, I am an entrepreneur. Authentic. My authentic self is to be an entrepreneur. And that is true, but it's also not. It's not really who I am. I'm not really an entrepreneur. Sure, in this lifetime, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. Yes, it's a part of my identity, but it's not who I am. If we look outside the physical body of Brandon Lucero, when we look at the soul of Brandon, I'm not an entrepreneur. That's not who I am. That's what we would call conditioned authenticity. I've been conditioned to understand and want and to desire to be an entrepreneur. It is a made up term to describe something that happens in today's day and age, but didn't happen 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago. So it's conditioned. That is who I am authentically based on the conditions of this society that I'm living in. If I was born 500 years ago, maybe I was a knight. And instead of saying, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a knight. But the point is that part of my authentic self, that I would call my authentic self, is 100% dependent on the conditions of my environment, not who I was. It isn't truly who I am. And that's why I call it conditioned authenticity. We all have these things that are our authentic self, that we would say, this is authentically who I am. And it comes out in our content. It comes in to how we parent. It comes in how we show up in relationships. But it is that part of us that we would say is our authentic self is 100% dependent on the conditions of the environment that we grew up in, or that we're raised in, or that we're living in. We've been conditioned to think that this is a part of us. We've been conditioned to think that it's something that we like, and we may actually like it. Like, I do like being an entrepreneur. I do like fast cars. Like, I had a Jaguar F-Type for a few years, and I loved that car. Like, I genuinely liked it authentically. That's my authentic self. I'd say I just like the fast car. I love driving it. I like vacations. I like going to the Four Seasons, right? Like, that's my favorite hotel chain. I like that. I like Viore. Like, that is my favorite clothing brand in the world. Like, if someone asks me, who are you and what do you like? I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. I really want to become successful because I want time freedom to be able to go on these vacations and stay at places like the Four Seasons with my family. Like that, and so that I could have these beautiful connections with my family. And almost all of that is conditional authenticity, except for one piece of that statement I just made. The one statement that what I just said, the one part of what I just said that is the authentic authenticity is that I want deeper connection with my family. But why? Because that is something that will live through lifetimes. That is something that no matter what time period or era or part that I work in, that is that connection to another being of love in depth and just care, genuine love, that will last lifetimes. That is not based on your conditional environment. That is not based on the conditions or in the environment. That is something that will always be there. And that is something that I crave, that I want, that drives me. And that is authentic authenticity, because that is something that my soul authentically wants. Now, to be very clear, there's nothing wrong with living with conditioned authenticity. There's nothing wrong with liking fast cars and wanting to be an entrepreneur and liking the vacations. And I like that stuff. And that is a part of my brand. I do talk about it. I do strive for that. I do want those things. Now, doing these things and focusing on these things might feel authentic to who I am, but I'm also at a place where I'm also aware that those are conditioned. Like, I've been conditioned to like those things based on my environment and the world that I live in. I mean, even the fact that I live in America gives me the environment to be conditioned to those things. Because if I grew up in like a third world country or something, I probably wouldn't be driven by those things or even have the chance to have those things. Even if I lived in a different, like a third world country, I didn't live in this country, my environment would completely change. And I may not be driven by those things. I might be driven by something else. I might like something else. So the point I'm making is that if our condition is different, our environment is different, and that starts to change who we are or the interests that we have or the things that we like, that's all the perfect example of something that is conditioned authenticity. But regardless of the time period, regardless of the place you live, regardless of those items, the things that are always there, that are always going to be a part of you, the things that always drive you and you strive for, regardless of your environment, regardless of where you grew up, regardless of where you live or the time period you live, those things are always true. That is authenticity, because that is your soul speaking to you. If I was born in a different time period, all of these things would change. That's why it's conditioned. Now, if we go one step further with this, and I'm not going to go too deep with this, but like even your past traumas, your past experiences have also conditioned you to be a version of who you think you are, even though you're not that person. So some people might say, I'm just spicy, or I'm just bold, or I'm someone who doesn't like conflict, or I'm just a passionate person. That's why I yell, because I'm a passionate person, right? And you take those on as a part of your identity. It's actually, that part is actually a little bit of a scary thing to look at when you start to say like, this personality trait of mine is who I am authentically. But that personality type of who you are, had you not gone through the childhood you went through or the traumas you went through, that personality that you claim is just who you are would probably also be completely different. If you had different parents, if you had a different way of growing up, your personality might be completely different, which means the things that you call yourselves that are authentic, I'm just going to be who I am because I'm just someone who yells and I'm passionate, or I'm bold. I'm just someone who's always bold, or I'm someone who just I'm just someone who doesn't like conflict. That's just who I am. I'm just being authentic to myself. No, you're not. Because those things were molded through your past experiences and past traumas. You've been conditioned to have that personality. They're survival responses that you've been conditioned to believe about yourself. And when we have this rigidity in thinking that this is who I am, what actually starts happening, or actually what stops happening, is growth. When we start saying like, this personality trait of mine is just who I am, and I just need to be authentic to who I am, and I need to understand my truth, that's rigid thinking. That's you being rigid in who you are based on the conditions of how you grew up. And what actually starts to happen when that happens is you do not explore, you do not get curious, and you stop all growth. And in other words, you stop all healing. When you have these different things, like I'm just someone who wants to avoid conflict, or I'm someone who's spicy, and I'm someone who yells because I'm passionate. When you just get so rigid in that belief, when you get so rigid in that conditioned authentic part of you, because it is a part of you, but it's been conditioned, right? We stop the healing, because when you say that's just who I am, you don't look at like, well, why am I that way? What happened in my past that caused me to be this way, to always be on the defense? What caused me to always like avoid conflict instead of stepping into my power? What stopped those things? Then we never get to the root of what the healing part of it is. We never get to the root of like, how do we heal so that we don't need to be living in this conditioned authenticity anymore? Because what I've learned in this process is that's sort of the goal. The goal is to like grow and to evolve and to get to the authenticity of us, which is pure essence. It's love. It's energy. It's the higher frequency feelings and emotions, much like a brand newborn baby. It's like they're just pure. They're innocent. They love. They're happy, right? Like, and it's just the only thing that really makes them upset is when their basic needs aren't met. Like I'm hungry. I, need a diaper change. I'm tired. Other than that, they're just there, right? Like that's the goal, is to get to that place. And when we step into authenticity, we actually start to become aware of why certain things are the way they are, or why we are the way we are. Or sometimes we even start to have a deeper understanding of why this conditioned, authentic part of me even exists. And then we get to choose if we still want that. Because sometimes we're trapped by the conditioned authenticity that we thought was us. And I'll give you guys a perfect example of this, especially if you listen to last week's episode. If you listen to last week's episode, I had this major aha moment where I became aware that my tone will change in certain times. And I didn't know that. And when I became aware of that, I was like, well, I use tone intentionally. I use tone to let my kids know when something is serious and not serious. And I just lived in this part of okay, that's just me. And I built my whole brand and we made millions of dollars off of this concept of taking an unheard entrepreneur and making them the new generation entrepreneur. And my goal was to help people become heard, get their message out there. That's why I landed with unheard entrepreneur. And I was I lived in this world where that was just authentically who I am. I'm just driven. I'm just driven by this need, this desire to make people feel heard. And I would have told you at the time that, no, that's authenticity, but it wasn't. It was conditioned authenticity. And I kept living there and operating there, and it was fine. It worked for me until it didn't. And when it doesn't work for you is when things start to fall apart. And it's okay. Again, there's nothing wrong with living with conditioned authenticity, but I'm promising you there's going to be a time in your life where that conditioned authenticity does not work for you anymore. And when it doesn't work for you, things fall apart. Relationships could fall apart. Your interests that you've liked all of a sudden don't interest you. There's going to be something, right? And so when I became aware of this tone that I had, I started to explore, why did I do that? And then then I realized that I was doing it a lot with my mom. And I was like, why specifically with my mom? And then I started to realize I was doing it with my kids at certain times. And I just wasn't aware that was happening. I didn't know the tone change. But when it came into my awareness, when this person brought it to my awareness, I started to ask why. And then what I realized was, oh my God, anytime I feel unheard, my tone changes. I get angry or I get irritated. When my kids don't listen to me the first 3 times, my tone starts to change. Why? Because I'm feeling unheard. I changed my tone with my mom because I had issues with my mom crossing boundaries. And when she crossed boundaries, I just didn't feel heard. And then it goes back to my childhood, which also I think back in my childhood, I had issues with not feeling heard with probably my mom. Right. And so I started to realize this and I went, oh my God, I built a multi-million-dollar business off of an insecurity, off of a trigger, off of a past trauma, off of a condition of my environment. The whole unheard entrepreneur thing was conditioned authenticity when I thought it was authentically who I was. And it caused me to build this huge, not caused me, but it led me to building this huge business, which was a beautiful thing. But now that I became aware of it, I get to choose, is that what I want to continue to do? And it is. I still want to make people feel heard, but I'm also healing that side of me. And I'm tapping into, I want to move forward, not because I'm feeling unheard. I'm moving forward. So basically my intention started to change. My intention of wanting to do this was because I want to help people, not because I have this subconscious insecurity or hurt that I want to heal, that I'm yearning to get out. So my intention, and it allows me to actually operate more powerfully. When we operate more with our authenticity, we become more powerful. There's more intention in what we do, and everything is based on intention. And what I started to realize is that the authenticity are things that will always be true through lifetimes. It is who you are as a soul. It is who you truly are beyond the physical body. And what I started to realize is this desire to get great messages out there, to change the world, to help evolution, to heal people. That is now my intention of why I want to take the unheard entrepreneur to the new generation entrepreneur. It's not because I was helping people avoid the hurt that I was. And there's more power in that. And that will live through lifetimes. Like, I believe in reincarnation. I believe in past lives. I believe in all that stuff, right? So moving forward in my next life and next life and next life, I believe that the conditioned authenticity of me will not live on. Like, because I won't have the same experiences of being unheard. So that past trauma, that past hurt probably won't live on. It might, depending on how you want to look at things, but it likely won't. But this desire to help people evolve and to live in love and to like get great messages out there and to heal, that will live on through lifetimes. That's where we are as souls. That's who we truly are beyond the physical body. Being a loving being, that's authentic authenticity. Have an undeniable sense of your purpose or your direction, a knowing. Not because it's a past hurt, it's a past trauma, it's an element of your condition or your environment. It's a knowing, a deep knowing that this is what I am here to do. It's an understanding that you are perfect, just the way you are. And the proof that you're perfect just the way you are is because that is how you are. The universe, God, however you want to say it, is a beautiful thing where everything is perfectly orchestrated to be exactly how it needs to be, which is why it's happening. You're perfect just the way you are. You know, like we have this idea that perfect means everything is right and correct and there's no bad traits or whatever, but no. Perfect is you're perfect just the way you are because that's the way you are. And the way you're that way because that's the way it needs to be. Because of the way you show up in other people's lives or the lessons you give them or whatever it may be. That's what authentic authenticity is. It's just like that soul level of just depth of knowing I'm perfect the way that I am. And don't use that as an excuse to not grow. That's not an excuse to say, I'm perfect the way I am, even though I'm causing problems in people's lives. It's like, no, like maybe you're causing problems in people's lives so that things can fall apart, so that you become aware you have a past trauma or a hurt that you need to heal so that you can grow. That's what I mean by you're perfect the way you are. You're perfect the way you are so that you can learn lessons and evolve and grow and get back down to depth and love and internal peace. So operating to what is true to your essence is authentic authenticity, but operating based off of fear, worries, past traumas, concerns, anxiety, the need for control, operating on that level is what I would say is conditioned authenticity, but operating based on what fills your soul with joy through lifetimes, regardless of the time period, is authentic authenticity. It's knowing without using logic that you're right where you need to be, doing what you should be doing, following your life's lessons and learning your life's lessons and being in a place where the external world does not influence your direction off of that path is authentic authenticity. Even if the path is hard, messy, hurtful, scary, painful, this is authentic authenticity where we are secure. We don't have these insecurities. We are secure and love more and more of who we are. And that can't be altered by fear, worry, or the external world, no matter how loud against. This is where power comes from. This is where powerful content comes from. This is where the deepest, most powerful connection and impact are made. So this is why when we see like the bro marketers or anyone flashing, or even sometimes it's the female marketers, the bro female marketers. I don't know what I'm calling them. You call them bras. I don't know. That actually doesn't work. It's like the Spanish English thing with adding an A, but that's just whatever. We're going to call them bros. Everyone's a bro. Okay. So female bros, the male bros, flashing Lambos or the Louis Vuitton bags or the whatever, the jewelry or the mansions. That will only have a certain level of impact on people's lives. Now, although when people flash those things like the Louis Vuitton bags and the jewelry and the vacations and the cars and the mansions, although that may be authentic to them because they do like it, it is conditioned. Because if we grew up 1,000 years ago, they wouldn't be flashing those things. That wouldn't be the focus. It is conditioned. Now, again, there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing that because people will still connect with that. I still do that too. Like I show off not show off, but I talk about the vacations because it's important to me. It's like where connection is. But really the authentic part of that is that it brings deeper connection with my kids. These like vacations and not having to worry about money and like all this, it allows me to operate in the authentic authenticity, which is the connection. But I also will talk about and show the vacation stuff because people also want those things. And they are important to me. Like I do love vacations. Like I genuinely like it, but I'm also aware that it's conditioned. And the reason why I bring this up is it is okay to use that in your marketing. It's okay to have that stuff. It's okay. It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And it actually works because there are people that want the vacations and the cars and the Lambos and those things. And it is a form of connection. It really is. But it will only there's a limit to the impact that it will have on people's lives, which is why people like Brene Brown or Simon Sinek or Dr. Joe Dispenza, people like Don Juan or Buddha, and the list goes on and on and on, right? They have a much bigger impact in people's lives than the person who's constantly flashing the Lambo. Why is that? Why is it that the people that only stay in conditioned authenticity have a certain level of impact in someone's life, while the people who really strive for authentic authenticity are always the ones who have deeper impacts inside of people's lives? And the thing is when I say the bigger impact, I'm not even talking about how many people they impact. I'm talking about the depth of how they impact someone. They impact someone's soul. They impact someone's entire direction. That's the difference. You can see it. You guys can see it out there right now between the different people that are putting out content. The ones that have the depth, the deep impact, the life-altering impact in someone's life, they're not the ones that are flashing and only stay in conditioned authenticity. They strive and go into authentic authenticity, which is why their teachings last a lifetime. Don Juan's teachings have lasted a lifetime. Buddha's teachings have lasted lifetimes, hundreds, centuries, thousands of years. Actually, I don't know if it's thousands of years, but hundreds of years. But there are teachings that have lasted thousands of years. Why is that? Why are there teachings that have lasted thousands of years, right? Like, I'm just going to use a stupid example here, but back before cars even existed 100 years ago, if people are like, let's just say there's an influencer and he's like flashing that he has the fastest, healthiest, like purebred horse. Why aren't that person's teachings and that message still here today, like the fastest horse? Because that is completely dependent. The desire for that's completely dependent on the environment, on when you live. However, when we look back at teachings from 100 years ago, there are people's teachings that are still here. Buddhist teachings have lasted hundreds of lifetimes. Why? Because it's authentic. It's authentic to a soul. The teachings are the reasons for the teachings are for authentic authenticity, things that are pure essence, for love, for peace, for evolution, for the things that we all say that we want. That's why, again, like Brene Brown, Simon Sinek, Dr. Joe Dispenza, their teachings are going to last beyond them because they look beyond the conditioned authenticity. And so, again, there's nothing wrong with having the conditioned authenticity. And what I've realized also is a lot of times the intention makes all the difference. For example, I'm going to continue to help entrepreneurs move out of staying stuck in the unheard realm. And I would say for the last couple of years, there was a good part of that desire, that mission was conditioned based on my past experiences. I wasn't aware of it, but it was driven by that. Now, what's beautiful in this is that because I became aware of that, because I'm working on healing it, because of that beautiful awareness, when I move forward, my intention for it has completely shifted, where it's purely about, I want to do this because I want to better the world. I want to make a better world for my kids. I want people like you to get your messages out there, to heal people, to help people. And you know what's really amazing by that is the more that I actually had this thought on a coaching call, the more that I step into that authentic intention of what I'm doing, the authenticity that could live for lifetimes. which is like to better the world, to bring more peace, help people become more loving. What I started to realize is the people that come into my programs, the people that I get to coach, generally are all the same. They're all people that wants to help. They're all people that that want to help parents become better parents, to raise a better generation. They're all people that help with nervous system regulation. They're all people that want to help with healing in some way. And so when I shifted my intention to be more in the realm of authenticity, the quality of people that started to come into my ecosystem, started by my product, completely shifted. It's very rare now that I'll have someone who's coming into my programs and saying, I want to make $1 million, bro. Why are you here? I want to make $1 million, bro. I want a Lambo, bro. Those people don't come into my ecosystem. They used to. But the more I started to heal and the more I started to step into the authenticity part of who I am, the quality of people and the reason why people are coming in, the reason why I get to help people completely shifted. Now, again, a lot of them also liked the condition part of me. They liked the fact that I do vacations and they want that too, and more time with the family and they want that too, or that I go riding electric motorcycles with my kids. They think it's cool, right? That stuff still happens, but there's a lot more depth in it now. And so the reason why I wanted to do this episode is not to tell you to stop doing the conditioned authentic part. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I encourage you. I think it's a really great connection point. But the point is that I want you to become aware of what parts are conditioned, what parts aren't, so that you can make a decision with more intention and meaning behind what you're doing, but also allow you to step more into that authenticity part of you and bring that into your content, your conversations, your relationships, so that you have more depth, growth, healing, and evolution in your life. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a good one. I love this one. And I'm probably going to be bringing more of this back to you guys. I'm going to be bringing more of this stuff to the podcast. So if you enjoyed this, let me know. And this was a really meaningful episode for me. And I would love to hear your feedback. And the way that I would love to hear your feedback are in two different ways. Number one, if you guys just want to send me a DM on Instagram and let me know, was this good? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What parts were great? Was it powerful for you? Just send me a DM on Instagram. I am Brandon Lucero. Or the more impactful way to leave me feedback is to head over to iTunes, leave a review. I love looking at the reviews. We're also at 199 reviews. We're one review away from 200. So if we can knock it over to 200, that would be amazing. Or do both. But any one of those ways I would be very grateful for that. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you on the next one.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.